Hey everyone, my Jr. here, and as of recently I've been absolutely loving an underdog of a shotgun, the M30 Drilling. I personally have been using this as my go-to shotgun actually, even over the combat shotgun, believe it or not. So after using this weapon quite extensively, the best way I can describe the M30 is that it's a very high risk, high reward kind of gun. In short, it requires a very particular method of use that is very different than the combat shotgun, where the combat shotgun is a very rough and tumble kind of use, whereas the M30 I feel more resembles a sniper rather than a shotgun, and thus requires a very careful precision that's more akin to snipers rather than the shotguns. However, instead of just talking, let's just jump straight into the hard stats. Right from the get-go, in terms of damage, one important thing to note is that at any range that the M30 can deal damage, it can deal lethal damage in a single shot. However, in practice, this can be much harder to pull off in game, especially out to further ranges. As in detail, this is due to the M30 taking 3 out of 8 pellets up at very close range, dropping down to 7 out of the 8 pellets required at a good distance. And finally, at the minimum damage, the M30 needs all 8 pellets to down an opponent at very far ranges. However, in hardcore, hitting just 1 pellet at any damage range will provide enough damage for a kill. Now if you use the advanced rifling attachment, this will extend the one-shot range very slightly, but it will also create a 2-shot range further out. Although, like I said before, having this ability to reach out that far is questionable at most, as it gets pretty difficult to land those pellets out at that range. Now if you're completely unfamiliar with this shotgun, you'll probably be thinking that hitting all pellets at that given range is probably nearly impossible, but there's a trick here. The M30 actually has very unusual accuracy properties where if you hip fire it, you'll just get the traditional shotgun spread that you're used to. But it's also not to mention that this is actually tied for the best in class hip fire tightness with the toggle action shotgun. But now if you aim down your sights with the M30, you'll actually get a very near pinpoint accurate spread that will allow you to hit all 8 pellets out to a further range, as long as you go for the center of mass. Although if you aim a little off-centered from your target, there is still a good chance that some pellets will still miss even if you aim down your sights, and therefore foil your one-shot kill. So on this note, my strongest advice here is to always attempt to pre-aim, keep your cool, and just use your sights as much as possible to maximize your accuracy to ensure those one-hit kills. But at closer range, such as within buildings or around corners, it actually might be better just to hip fire, just so you're sure you can get your shots off and be on target in an impulse response. And luckily for having at least 2 barrels, it certainly is not the end of the world if you fail to kill in one shot, but it is definitely going to be some trouble in getting the rebound. If you're just hip firing, the recoil is more than manageable and getting the second shot is just simple enough. Although for more distant gunfights while aiming down your sights, the recoil will certainly throw you off and probably lead to a bad second shot. So if you find yourself in this case, I found it's best to try to break the line of sight to recollect your aim and then just quickly pop out to finish them off. But if you can't happen to break the line of sight, the recoil is mostly vertical and to the right, so dragging your aim downwards fast will probably be your best bet at getting back on target. Now with the 2 heavier topics cleared and moving on to the handling. The handling is somewhat troubling in some areas, but manageable for the most part. Where the M30 is most rough is the reload time at 3.4 seconds for 1 shell, and about 4 seconds for 2 shells. But if you're using Hustle, these will speed up to 2.6 seconds and 3 seconds respectively. From my experience, Hustle is nice, but definitely not necessary to have as long as you're taking it slow and landing your shots. as you won't really need to be reloading in a hurry. However, I strongly recommend that you at least learn how to reload cancel via sprinting or double tapping the triangle or whatever button that is on Xbox, as you can cut off a good portion of the reload animation, reducing it to about 2.4 seconds for one shell and 3 seconds for 2 shells, where using hustle will actually reduce these further to 1.9 seconds and 2.3 seconds respectively. Although if you choose to use hustle, you won't be able to reload cancel by sprinting due to its bonus effect by default. So while you could just quickly swap weapons twice, I find it's more prone to error and a tad bit slower to pull off. So to fix this, you can always just go into your options and enable reload cancel by sprinting with airborne or hustle. One other important point I'd like to cover here is how effective is the rifle bullet and the incendiary shells on the M30. On the overview, the rifle bullet comes with no range cap and basically behaves like a sniper, and most notably has damage comparable to the Lee Enfield and Type 38, where a shot to the chest up will give a kill. But unlike those snipers, there isn't any aim assist on it out to a long range, so it can feel very unforgiving at times. However, when given some time, I find it to actually be very viable in game modes where spawns are more stable, like Domination for example. While on the other hand, the incendiary shells are much easier to use and pretty much plug and play. If you watched my video covering incendiary shells, you may have actually seen it decreases the one-hit kill range of the M30, and although decreasing this range isn't too noticeable, as hitting all 8 pellets at that distance is already very unlikely, in return, thanks to the fire damage, it increases the damage per shot at close range, which can directly translate to needing less pellets for a kill. Although it's basically impossible for me to hand test the exact damage due to incendiaries, but through extensive in-game use, I can say it definitely makes a difference hip firing a lot easier and consistent. This attachment also pairs well with advanced rifling, as it actually reverts the incendiary one-hit kill range back out to the standard one-hit kill range. So if you want the boosted close range damage, but with no sacrifice to your range, using these two attachments together will always be an option. Therefore, since you only can choose either the incendiary shells or the rifle bullet, I would definitely pick the incendiary shells, as it is just simply more beneficial in more circumstances, and really just provides a more consistent performance out of the M30. Now for my recommended setup for the M30. Like I said before, I find this weapon is best when you take a slower approach compared to the combat shotgun, as good positioning means everything here. With this in mind, I opt for the Expeditionary Division to help fix the low ammo reserve by being able to regenerate and resupply more shells, and as well as being able to use stun grenades as scanner grenades due to the 4th Expeditionary perk, which is great for being able to pre-aim and anticipate the enemy positions. As for attachments, I like to run the reflex sight to provide the clearest view for high precision shots, and is most arguably the most important attachment out of the bunch in my opinion. Next, I like using steady aim just to tighten up the already good hipfire spread, just so that you can have hip firing as an option at the 7 pellet kill range, and as well as just to have more consistency with hip firing at closer range. And finally, I also run Incendiary as the final attachment, just for the boosted close range damage. Now I know some people like using quick draw with the M30, but I feel it's better to already be pre-aiming, as if you try to aim down your sights on an impulse reaction, chances are you'll miss anyways. So for equipment, I prefer to take an S-mine to cover your flanks since it's easy to get overwhelmed due to only having 2 shots in the barrels. And this will also help relieve some pressure off of you in battle. But that's all for this guide. Hopefully this will be helpful for camo challenges or just to encourage you to try something new. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and until the next video.